Tides come in, tides go out, an endless ebb and flow. Mystic is a native word from centuries ago. Native people used the river and the waters of the Sound. Great Spirit had provided them as ways to get around.
Hey there, dear listeners. Welcome to Table to Stage. I am Jordan Werma, and this is my podcast. Okay, guys, I got a Grammy winner this week, like an actual Grammy. I saw it myself, just sitting there, like it wasn't some sort of fragile major award. Bill Pere received a Grammy for Best Children's Album of the Year in 2012 for his contribution of the song Donkey in a Ditch, which he co-wrote with Les Julian. It was featured on the compilation album All About Bullies Big and Small, and the Grammy was a secondary feature in Bill's studio, because in 2009, he got his face on a freaking Cheerios box for his work toward fighting hunger. The list of Grammy winners to also appear on Cheerios boxes includes Bill and someone called Usher. So there's that. Bill Pere has been writing songs, teaching about writing songs, writing books about writing songs, and using his songs for social justice for many years, and he has many stories to share. So let's get to it. Here is Bill Pere from his studio. Were you born in Brooklyn?
Bronx.
The Bronx. Okay, well, that's a mistake I don't want to make again, right?
Right.
But you came to Connecticut relatively early on.
Well, I came in 1979.
Okay. What prompted that move for you? Was it a work thing?
It was a work thing that brought us to Connecticut.
Yeah. And where were you in your career musically at that time?
I'd recently graduated college and living around New York City. I was trying to shop some songs to publishers. That was the day when you could actually walk into a publisher's office and play the song.
Yeah.
So I was getting feedback, but it was hard to get the right connections. And then the opportunity came to move up here to Connecticut. And as it turned out, that was quite serendipitous, because it was just the time that the Connecticut Songwriters Association was being formed.
Okay.
And so I was able to get in on the ground floor and was one of the founding members.
Yeah. Well, what was the music scene like for you in New York at that time? Were you steeped in it, or was it something that really influenced your own creative style, your own songwriting? Were you competing against other people to get to those publishers and get your music heard?
I'd been writing songs way back. I started in middle school writing songs. Of course, I would not let anybody hear those. But and that was even before I knew how to play the guitar. I had the guitar tuned all wrong, and I was playing the chords all wrong. But managed to come up with something.
Of course.
But
sounds good to your own ears anyway, right?
Well, yeah, we charged a nickel for our first concert.
Okay.
But so I was always rather self-generating in terms of style and songs, and I was steeped in the songs of the 60s and the music of the 60s.
Sure.
So that's what I was listening to. And in college, I started taking music courses. I learned orchestration and all the ins and outs of music. So my songwriting started to become more sophisticated.
Okay.
And it was while I was in college in 1972 that Harry Chapin first came on the scene. And I remember hearing that song Taxi, his first song.
Oh, yeah.
And that said to me, that's what a song can be.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally changed the way I approached songwriting from then on.
Yeah. Harry Chapin, had a relatively short-lived public career.
Right.
But I remember Cats in the Cradle was one of the first songs that really impacted me when I was a kid. My father used to play it on the guitar or play the record or whatever, and it stuck with me all 40 some odd years later. I still remember this song.
Yeah, and
it's amazing the impact that his songwriting has going even now.
Well, that's the key. That good songwriting spans decades and decades.
Yeah.
Styles change, production changes, taste change,
Sure.
but good songs live on. And it's hard to be able to say to someone that a person was really a great songwriter until it's withstood the test of time.
Yeah.
And here we are, so many years after his that fatal car accident, and he still has millions of fans all over the world, people putting on Chapin concerts, because the songs really speak to people, and they were so well written.
And people that weren't even alive then.
Right. Well, I mean, we work with one of our programs is work with kids, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But we introduce the kids to his music, and this is stuff that they've never heard before, and it's like, wow, this is really great.
Right. Not just an artist they haven't heard, but just a style of music.
Exactly.
Probably, right?
Yep.
All right. So you made the move from New York to Connecticut.
Yes.
What was the biggest difference between those two places at that time as far as the music scenes available? Like, how were you able to access the music scene in Connecticut? Was there a music scene in Connecticut? And how did you adapt to that change?
It was the music scene in Connecticut, of course, was very different than New York. There were the small venues where people would do the usual, 9-to-1 gigs for $40. But what was different was because there were no big publishers, no big music centers here. Some folks decided that in order to be able to have any impact, they needed to organize. And so that's how the Connecticut Songwriters Association kind of got together. And at the time, it was one of the first songwriter associations in the country. And because we were located relatively close to New York and Boston, each month we would be able to bring someone from the music industry up to come and speak to us. And so we were fortunate enough, like every month we would be kind of hobnobbing with some major person from the songwriting industry. We had George David Weiss, who came up many, many times. He was at the time the president of the Songwriters Guild, and he had written so many hit songs for Elvis and many of the songs that you know. And Bobby Weinstein was the vice president of BMI. He'd written, again, many of the hits of the 60s. So we had all these folks coming up, people who produced Grammys, people from the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And then we started to get people from Nashville and Los Angeles, and and just this was just going on month after month. And I always tell people, I got an education that I couldn't have paid for anywhere. There was no school that was teaching these things.
Right.
You could get a music degree, but you weren't going to learn the ins and outs of the songwriting business and the craft. So I got this fantastic education, and we made an impact on lots and lots of up-and-coming songwriters and being able to help guide them along the paths that they wanted to go.
Yeah, I mean, the 60s and 70s were kind of a transitional time in music anyway, as far as people writing their own songs to perform themselves, whereas in the 40s and 50s, it was, they would have songwriters who would write the songs and farm them out to whatever, popular artist there was singing. So as a songwriter and someone who performed his own music, did that change your relationship to the business at all at that point?
Well, it taught me about the business. I mean, prior to coming here and learning from all these professional folks, neither I nor most anyone else really understood the complexities of the music business, because it is a very, very complex business.
Yeah.
And
especially these days, the way it's shifting. And
yes, it's always been complex, and it's a lot of the pieces are always moving and changing. So I'm extremely thankful and fortunate in that sense to have gotten that aspect of the education that's needed to be able to navigate through the business.
Yeah.
I and many of my colleagues know lots and lots of really great songwriters who have catalogs of really great songs, but they just sit there on the shelf because those folks don't understand the business. They were never taught.
Right. Yeah. What is it now, especially now, but how do you take the concept for a good song, record it, and get it to a place where people not just can hear it, but are even able to access it, know it's there?
Well, you're asking those are two fundamental questions. Number one is, especially with the changes that have come about in the technology and distribution through the internet, anyone can write anything and get it out to a worldwide audience. That's, of course, been the biggest change, and it's rendered most of the major record companies moot in that sense. The record companies back prior to that had they were the gatekeepers of what could get distributed.
Oh, yeah.
Now anyone can distribute anything. But the key question is, as you say, how is anybody going to find it, number one? And number two, the most important question is, if they do find it, what's going to make them care about it.
Right.
So to address the first part of that, one of the things we teach is how to use websites and social media to get people to find your things.
Sure.
Because, all right, so, Joe Smith puts out a bunch of songs, puts up a website. Nobody knows it's there.
Right.
Nobody, and even though you can have your songs fully distributed on Amazon and Spotify and all, that's nothing. Anybody can do that. But for someone to find it, they've got to know that they're specifically looking for either a specific song or the artist.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where certain techniques in using websites comes in, that you have to populate your website with a lot of content, not about you and your music, because nobody knows about that, right. But about
right.
other things that you care about that other people also care about.
So the search engine optimization part of it.
So that in the course of people searching for things, they happen upon you, not because they are looking for your music, but because they're looking for something else.
Right.
And they discover that you have this interest and you are also a songwriter.
Right. There's got to be a large component of that now where there's that algorithm that's always trying to match, this is what you've been listening to. Here's what we think you're going to like. Do you know what I mean? Like if you watch it on Netflix or something because you like this movie, you're going to like
sometimes
this.
Sometimes it works, sometimes not.
Yeah, I find it very rarely does, but there's got to be that component that has to be taken into consideration, right?
If you, let's say you have an interest in baseball, as some of my colleagues do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope everybody does.
So they wrote a bunch of songs about baseball.
Yeah.
So again, nobody knows they exist, but they put these songs up there, and there are all these songs about baseball, and on the website they have a lot of information about baseball, statistics, the musings, anything that baseball fans might find, and they say, "Oh, look at this! There's all these songs about baseball," and ultimately, that collection of songs is now in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh wow! Okay.
I mean, that's why I say to people, these young songwriters, don't just write generic love songs. Because if you write a song that says, I love you,
right.
Nobody's going to find it.
Right.
If you Google love, you're going to be on page 10 million. But if you write about something that's unique and different and interesting with some unusual words in it, people will find it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Like being able to find a unique string of words that you can punch into the Google machine and it'll find you a website where the music almost seems incidental, like it's almost a bait and switch to some degree.
Well, it's a bait.
Yeah,
it's a bait, right. Not necessarily a switch. It's a bait and stay.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. So this is part of the Connecticut Songwriters Association.
Right, we do seminars and programs on teaching people how to do all this stuff, and I know it works. I mean, this is what has worked for me over the years. I have my websites about hunger and homelessness. Which is one of the things that matters to me. And lots of folks have found me through that and through searching through that.
Sure. So the program you just mentioned, the LUNCH, that's the acronym, right?
LUNCH, Local United Network to Combat Hunger.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you go from singer-songwriter to activist for hunger? Or how are those connected?
Okay, good question. In the general sense, I will always say that writing songs can, and I hope should, be more than just writing for oneself, because songwriting gives one the opportunity to reach lots and lots of people with your message.
It does, yeah.
So whatever matters to you, whatever you care about that's larger than yourself, if you write about those things and get that message out there that's about more than just you, you're going to engage more people. In my particular case, I have always been passionate about issues of hunger and homelessness. Also because of the influence not only of my mom and living in the Bronx where we saw lots of homelessness, but the work of Harry Chapin.
Right.
Because when I first heard him, as I mentioned before, I was very much taken by the incredible craft of his songs. But then as I learned more about him, I learned he always said, do one show for yourself and one for the other guy. And
right.
he would do all these benefit shows because he said, in this country, in our country, the United States, no one should be hungry. There's more than enough food. There's just issues of distribution and all of that stuff.
And this is 40 years ago he's talking about
absolutely.
This. And we still have so much of that issue
and he
now.
Literally put his money where his mouth is. He lobbied Congress. He got laws enacted. He founded World Hunger Year, which is still active as an international organization. And so it showed me that one person, through the medium of song, with a targeted message can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And so when we lost him in the car accident in 1981, it was a great loss. And when it started coming up on the 10th anniversary of his death, and it was in 1989, I first got the idea. I said, I would like to do some kind of 10-year tribute to him and his music and his legacy. So I was thinking about what to do, and I came up with the idea of local United Network to Combat Hunger, LUNCH, and we would do a tribute concert. Mm-hmm. And so we put the whole thing together, and we wound up raising over $20,000
in one day.
It was over the course of this concert. We did like a 6-month fundraising effort.
Okay.
And
but in 1989,
this was and we had the concert in 1991.
Okay,
that was the first.
So it was on the 10-year anniversary.
Yes, we did on the anniversary, and so it was supposed to be a one-time shot, but after the concert, and then we presented the proceeds to various organizations. We went on. They were doing a Harry Chapin telethon on PBS, and we presented a check to his wife, Sandy Chapin.
Oh, wow.
And so everybody was asking me, well, when are you going to do this again?
Yeah.
So 2 years later, we did another one, and then another one. So here we are, 30 years later. We have done hundreds and hundreds of shows. We've raised $1.1 million.
Wow.
We've had more than 3,000 kids in our programs. So that was one of the key things. I wanted to involve kids in our programs to show them that they can make a difference.
Now, the kids in the programs, are they kids who benefit from the actual fundraising?
No, these are kids who we actually do a 3-prong outreach. So we have this program for kids, and most of them are kids from local schools up and down the coast of Connecticut, and some come from far away. We've had more than 3,000 kids in our program. And these are kids who like music, who like to sing, and want to be involved in helping the community. So we put on these shows, and then these are family shows for the community. And then the shows raise proceeds that we then donate to different social service agencies who are the ones who have the expertise in maximizing the impact of those dollars.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. It's amazing. Like when you say 3,000 kids, and having kids of my own, I've realized that if you put an opportunity in front of kids to engage with the community and do something to help other people, they'll almost always jump on it. Like they're very eager to do that kind of thing. That's amazing. 3,000 kids and all that money raised for to fight hunger.
It's just been great for us. It gives us a chance to do music in front of audiences that are there not only to hear the music, but because they want to support what we're doing. And so many of the kids that we've worked with, as they've grown and gone on to their adult lives, some of them have kids now.
Yeah.
We still get, they still stay in contact, and we get letters and saying how much they enjoyed all the things we did. So, and we've got lots and lots of our old videos online from our concerts dating way back to the 90s.
Oh, wow. As far as like getting all those kids involved and sort of injecting this community of music into all these people, have you been able to see the impact that it has made on their community and on the individuals that have been involved in the program?
Yeah, definitely on the individuals. I mean, we know that this has made a lasting impact on a lot of the kids, and in the community, we of course we stay in constant touch with lots of the local social service organizations. So we know what's going on, we know what they're doing, we know where the need is, and we do our best to try to make a difference wherever we can.
Yeah. I mean, and I mentioned this before we started recording today, but the way that the arts are sort of being funneled away from public education, and it's one of the big impetuses behind me doing this podcast in the first place. How do you see that void of the arts being filled now if it's not being taught in public schools the way it used to be, at least when I was a kid, and I'm sure when you were growing up? It was such a fundamental part of the educational, the whole full circle education. And the programs still exist, but they've scaled way back, and now you're combining schools and kids have fewer opportunities. Does an organization like yours help to fill that void in some way? Or are you're finding people that still have that passion and the ability to get that education that are finding you to participate?
It's both of those things. It depends on the school system. I know for a fact that some parents have brought their kids to us because their schools have no music program.
Yeah.
So the kids have come to us, and we're definitely filling that gap. I mean, not only do we do the performances, but we actually mentor the kids. We teach them music. We have a full teaching studio here. We try to give them as much of a rounded exposure to all aspects. We do stage plays too.
Really?
Yeah, drama,
wow.
Scripted dramas, and all of that stuff that we write ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
We try to be a full arts organization, and we provide the opportunities for kids, whatever school they come from, whatever program they come from.
Sure.
Some of them come because they get music in school, but they want more because they're just into music, and some of them get nothing in school, and this is something. This is an opportunity for them to get that kind of experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I'm definitely gonna follow that up. See what projects are coming up for lunch there.
Yeah, we have a very big website. It's got all of our chronology on there for the last 30 years.
So the one common thread for you going through all of this is songwriting.
Yes,
absolutely. It's a big part of your identity, I would guess.
Yes. One of the questions I always ask when I do workshops, I ask the folks who are there, are you, in your heart of hearts, are you primarily a songwriter who performs or a performer who writes songs?
Oh, okay.
So those are two different things.
Yes.
They're really different
so
things.
Which is it for you?
For me, I know that I am a songwriter primarily.
Okay.
I hear the talk in the tavern, say a baby was born to the rich family in the mansion. 20 years later, one cool autumn morn, he vanished. I hear the talk in the tavern, say the young man was daft. He felt dirty, being showered with riches, while the poor folks went hungry, unpaid for their craft. He was troubled.
Whether I perform or somebody else performs my songs, it's what matters is the song.
Okay. Do you find that one of those two things produces better quality songs?
Yes.
As an aggregate?
Yes. I mean, songwriting is a craft.
Yes.
And the way I look at songwriting is all songs, anybody can be a songwriter, and when someone sincerely taps into something that's important and tries to capture it in a song, that has value. Mm-hmm. But it's like going down into deep into a diamond mine and bringing out a raw gem. Mm-hmm. And when an ordinary person looks at that as it's just come out of the diamond mine, well, it's a valuable thing, but it's covered with dirt and it's all lumpy and everything.
Sure.
So somebody looks at it and goes, Then what do they do with the diamond? They bring it to a craftsperson, mm-hmm. and that person takes a set of skills and a set of tools and refines it, polishes it, cuts it to a nice shape.
Sure.
And then when people see it, they go, wow.
Yeah.
And I always say that the job of a songwriter, in order to be successful and have songs that last, is you need to do both of those things. You want to make people go, wow. And in order to do that, you have to know what it means to be a craftsperson for songs.
Yes.
And that's where there are guidelines and techniques and things that can be learned. One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of young songwriters make, or performers who are trying to write songs just so they have something to perform, is they will write, they feel inspired by something. Mm-hmm. They'll write it all down, just pouring the emotion out, and then they go, it's done.
Right.
But in fact, it's not done, because that's the beginning then of what should be phase 2, which is the crafting phase.
Right.
And that's something, you're wearing a different hat, you're looking at it differently, and those are things that have to be taught and learned.
Right, the refining and rewriting. Yes. And yeah.
Right. That's the essence of the book that I wrote, is how to do those things.
So the Songcrafter's Coloring Book.
Yes.
When did you publish this?
That was published in 2009. I had started writing articles on songcrafting back in the 80s, and they attracted the attention of a lot of folks in the industry, and I was getting lots and lots of compliments. So I finally put it all together in the book. I put it out in 2009, and it's been very successful. It's in use on 6 continents. And
what's wrong with the other one? Nobody in Antarctica?
We haven't gotten the penguins yet. We're working on that. So it's basically everything I've ever learned made actionable, so that people can read this and see all the tools and techniques that are available for crafting a song. And it's not prescriptive. It doesn't say you have to do these things. It's just, here are the things that you can think about and the things that you can choose or not choose to apply to your songs.
Yeah.
But if you do these things, they will make your songs better.
Well, not to spoil the book or steer people away from it, but you mentioned the toolkit that songwriters have to be able to get past that first writing down everything and just going with it. What are some of the tools that should be in that bag for a songwriter to be successful?
Okay, well, there are all songs are made up of 5 basic things.
Okay.
There's the music aspect of it, which in turn has 5 things. There's melody, harmony, rhythm, dynamics,
I
timbre.
didn't know there was going to be math involved today.
Then there's structure. I mean, a lot of songwriters are even unfamiliar with something as basic as song structure. There are 6 basic song structures. And again, if you don't follow them, nobody's going to throw you in jail. There's nothing wrong with it. You can do whatever you want. But if you do follow them, it's going to make your songs more accessible to listeners. And the thing you always have to remember as a songwriter is you are not writing for your family and friends and fans.
Right.
You're writing for strangers.
Right.
Because the only way that you're going to grow your fan base is if you attract a stranger who doesn't already know you. So when you write, you got to ask yourself, what am I going to do? How am I going to present this song so that a stranger would be interested in it? And there are 3 basic questions. One is, what do I want to say?
Mm-hmm.
How do I want to say it? And who do I want to say it to?
Okay.
And you think those 3 questions. So so you got your song forms.
Those are universal communicating
exactly.
in any way. Yeah.
Songwriting is communication. And this is, you bring up a key point. Again, one of the first questions I ask in workshops is, who can tell me the difference between expression and communication?
Okay.
That first phase where you're just, you're writing it all down, that's expression, that's self-expression. And that's primarily for yourself. You're doing that for yourself. If you want others to connect and respond to what you're doing, and it's not expression, it's communication.
Right.
And that has to follow all the principles of communication. So you've got these song forms, which make the song easier for the listener. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, in the lyrical part of the song, which is the most difficult part by far for the vast majority of people, you've got semantics, phonetics, and prosodics. What the heck are those things?
Okay.
Semantics is basically the meaning of, what are you trying to say? How, again, one of the common mistakes is you know what you want to write about, you know all the details, but your listener doesn't.
Right.
So you can't make any assumptions. If you want them to know what you're saying, you got to say it.
Sure.
It has to be clear. And there's, a whole bunch of principles that go with that. So the clarity of what you're saying. And then prosody, which is the killer. It's the thing that most people just mess up in songs because they're not aware of it, is getting the accents on the wrong syllables and the emphases in the wrong place.
Right.
And it makes it hard to understand.
Right.
And you hear that a lot in, a lot of the pop music that's, but just because
I'm always trying to keep my kids from singing the way the pop kids sing.
And just because they can do it, that doesn't mean you can do it. And I'll come back to that.
Learn that later, but learn how to sing properly first.
Well, a well-written song is going to be conversational. There's no need to bend the pronunciation of a word. It's, if you want to communicate, because as we said, if you communicate with the emphases on the wrong syllables, it's going to bother people.
Right. Well, it changes,
and
depending on what you're pronouncing properly or improperly, it changes the message you're communicating.
Right. That's called principle of contrastive stress. Yes. Right. He didn't drink his milk today. He didn't drink his milk today. He snorted it. Right. He didn't drink his milk today. He drank it yesterday.
Right. Exactly.
And then you have phonetics, which is the last piece, and that's the sound of the words, the physical sound of the words. That's like the bubbles in the champagne, the things that tickle your ear. So, if you say something like, their freezer was filled with a fine festive feast, that's a lot more interesting than saying there's a lot of frozen food in the refrigerator. Right. Or she sat and sewed the sails that swept him out to sea. All those repetition.
The alliterative qualities.
Right.
And all that.
Which is quite prevalent in rap music and hip hop.
So the meter that they use in that is very interesting. I don't really enjoy hip hop for the most part.
Right.
But the metering and the rhyming that they come up with
is
amazing.
Right. Because what you're hearing in hip hop is the parameter of melody set to 0. It's spoken, but there's no melody. It's rhythmic and it's phonetic.
Right.
Okay, and that's an art form in and of itself.
Yeah.
So there's all of these things, and each one of these things that I mentioned has a set of tools and techniques that goes with it. That's what the book is about, and this is what we teach. And the folks who really stick with it and dive in and work to master these things become so much better songwriters.
Yeah.
And here's the key thing, that for today's aspiring songwriters, when you're starting from ground up and you want to break into this business and have some success, you don't have a big record company behind you.
Right.
So you don't have $1 million budget. You don't have connections. You don't have all the things that someone who is putting out top 10 hits has.
Right.
And that's the reason a lot of these songs are in the top 40 or top 10. It's not because they're good songs. It's because they've got these huge budgets.
They have the machine behind them.
Right, and they got name recognition. It's not, Beyonce could put out anything and it's going to be a hit. It doesn't matter what it is. The Beatles could have put out Poop and it would have been a hit. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So the only thing you have, the only currency you have as an unknown singer-songwriter or songwriter is the quality of your song.
Yeah.
That's all you've got. So because a well-written song is rare, if you look at all the songs that come out in a given year, most of them are cookie-cutter stamps.
Yeah.
They're just like a phrase repeated over and over again, which it's not so much songwriting, it's production. I mean, the thing that catches people's ear and makes things a hit is the production and not so much the song. So even if you don't even have a big production budget, you don't even have that. All you've got is the song.
Mm-hmm.
So if you write a really well-crafted song, that's rare enough that it's gonna give you some traction.
Yeah.
That's your currency.
Now, the Songcrafter's coloring book, now I was just flipping through it. Mm-hmm. There's not a single page in here for coloring.
No, it's because, yes and no. It's because we as songwriters color with words.
Okay. Oh, so that's what the title refers to.
Yes,
okay.
we color with words. If you look at the crayons on the front, see each of the crayons is marked with a lyrical technique.
I see.
There.
Okay. So what is, like, I know there's all the different components to songwriting that you outlined in the book, but if there's one thread that kind of ties it all together in this book, what would you say that thread is?
To understand all of the elements that go into a song and ask yourself if you have addressed them to your satisfaction.
Okay.
In other words, it's okay to say, I don't want to do this in this song. That's different than ignoring it or not being aware that you haven't done it.
Okay.
If you make the conscious choice to do or not do something, then you're doing right by your song.
Okay, I see. As far as, like, when you're putting a song together, I've tried a few times to write some songs. I've either successfully finished lyrics or successfully finished the guitar element. Mm-hmm. But I've never been able to put the two of them together satisfactorily for myself. When you're writing a song, do you start with one over the other?
Oh, that's a common question. The answer to that is, first of all, it's individual for each person.
Right.
And within each person, it's probably individual for each song.
Right.
I have started with music first and then come up with words. I've had words first and then music, or sometimes together. That's part of that first phase, that inspiration phase, where there are no rules. There's no rights or wrongs. You just do what the song is telling you to do. And then when that's done, that's when you begin the crafting.
Yeah. Okay. So I hear from people a lot, especially when it comes to, like, rock and roll music, that the music should always take precedent over the lyrics. And I've always
I would
disagreed with that.
And rightfully so. Rightfully so. The people who say that are typically the ones who have a hard time writing lyrics.
Well, I was wondering about that because I'm far more of a singer than I am a musician. So maybe I've always just sort of assumed that's why I care more about the lyrics, because that's the part I can do.
The way to think of it is, I mean, if the lyrics aren't really saying anything, if they're just saying ooh, ah, and all of that stuff, it could just as easily be an instrument doing that.
Sure. Oh, yeah,
it's
that's
just
true.
simply using the voice as an instrument, which is fine because there are a lot of great...
Torme made a career doing
Yes, there are great instrumental songs, but don't in any way consider that good songwriting. It's not. It's composition. It's musical composition. Sure. Songwriting, by the way, the definition of a song, which most people don't really know, the definition of a song is lyric and melody.
Okay.
That's the definition of a song legally and traditionally.
Okay. So if there's no singing, it's not a song.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a musical composition. Right. And also, like all the other stuff, the production elements and all that, that's not part of the song. That's not part of the copyright.
Okay.
It's just the lyric and the melody. So, for example, Paul McCartney's song, Yesterday.
Yeah.
There are over 1,000 different arrangements of that song.
Yeah.
You know, you have choral arrangements, band arrangements, blues, jazz. That song's been done a million different ways.
Yeah.
Each one of those is a separate arrangement copyright, but it's all just one song. So on a given day, if all 1,000 version of those were played on the radio, Paul McCartney would get 1,000 royalty streams, but each arranger would get one.
Interesting.
And again, this is one of those things, you know, folks, they don't know that.
Yeah.
So when people hear a song and say, oh, that's a great song, most of the time they're responding to the arrangement or the performance, none of which has anything to do with the song.
Right.
And that's why all of these ooh, ah, I love you songs can be hits, because they are catchy to the ear. It's just, you know, you can't in any good conscience say these are good songs.
Sure. Oh, that's interesting. I never really thought about it, I guess, to try to define a song for myself before. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and if we go back to, you know, really good songwriters like Harry Chapin or Billy Joel or some, those are lyrics that you can see are crafted. Those lyrics have thought behind them. They mean things. They say something. And to go back to your initial example of you know, rock and roll blues, where people say the music is okay. However successful a song like that could be, just think how much more successful would it be if the lyrics actually said something.
Right.
It had the same music, but the lyrics actually said something.
Right. Yeah. It's a interesting, I think, an interesting maybe tightrope to walk there, where you're trying to write a song people can dance to and groove to, but also connecting enough. Not so much that it might make them too emotional to be listening to.
Well, people then have so much more of a choice. I mean, if a song really has a great dance rhythm, you're probably not even going to listen to the words. You're just going to dance.
Right.
But if if you happen to just cast your ear to catch a couple of words and they're interesting, you've got a whole nother thing, another source of stimulation to deal with.
Sure.
I love, for example, Lady Marmalade. You know, the Pat of the Bell song.
Yeah.
It's an R&B song, but that's got words.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a story there.
Sure.
A well-written story.
Yeah. Oh, she was wonderful. There's a whole generation of those performers that were just incredible. Is there anyone today that, like in pop music today, that you consider to be even a competent songwriter?
That's the thing. Okay, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
And I do a whole seminar on this. Pop music, by definition, is a production genre.
Yeah.
It's all about the production and not the song.
Right.
There are very few actual pop songs that have substantive lyrics. Now, if you go back to Madonna,
yeah,
she, being a very smart businesswoman, not only did she have, you know, pop songs that were pop in terms of the arrangement, there were meaningful words there. I mean,
Sure.
Papa Don't Preach, Material Girl, those are all meaningful lyrics.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones today, it just, you know, another one of the secrets is a lot of these pop songs are written by some guys over in Sweden with a dictionary.
Yeah.
I kid you not. It's a phrase dictionary. And let's take this phrase, repeat it 32 times. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, again, if the arrangement is catchy, it's going to be a hit song. But, you know, where there has always been an emphasis on lyric and storytelling and clarity, it's always been in Nashville, where the lyrics clearly predominate over the music, because in Nashville you're only dealing with 4 chords.
Right,
pretty much all the songs are 4 chords.
Right.
So if you listen to the lyrics that come out of Nashville, you know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
The songs say something, and they say it clearly, and that's why you have it's one of the largest audiences for any style of song is country music. Now, I like intricate music, so I've never been a fan of country music musically, but I have great respect for the lyrical content.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of those songs, they don't have to be done in a country style. They can be done in any other style.
Well, I mean, modern country music is really a steel guitar away from being another pop song on the radio.
Yes,
anyway.
There's a lot of merger there.
So the music that you write, the songs that you write, the songs that you record, the album, 12 studio albums now?
I think we're up to about 16 now.
Oh, okay.
Just put a new one out.
Oh, boy. All right. Breaking news. Who are you gearing your music for? Is it the same audience every time, or do you kind of jump around?
No, it's definitely different. And when I write songs, I don't write an album at a time. I write songs at a time, and I put them in a bucket so that if the song I'm writing today is a say a spiritual song, it goes in that bucket. If I'm writing a song about something that's nautical or seafaring, it goes in that bucket. If I'm writing a children's song, it goes in that.
I see.
And when the bucket is full, I put out the album so that all the songs are themed.
Okay.
So consequently, I've got several children's albums.
Yes.
I've got songs of spiritual, gospel type music. I've got story songs. I have my trilogy of Crest of a Wave, which is songs about the sea, Cityscape, which is urban, and Rural Mural, which is the rural songs. And I've got my historical educational songs, Profiles of Connecticut. So I go, and the styles are varied. I have some that are just simple guitar vocal. I have some that are full orchestration, full choirs, or just, all kinds of.
Yeah. Well, you've done a lot of children's work. Like
yes.
With, not just with your records, but with Lunch and all the
right.
social work that
Correct.
you do. So when 2012 came around and you ended up with that shiny statue on the other side of the room, the little Grammy Award over there, what was that experience like for you? I know it was part of a larger compilation
right.
of music.
The way that all came about is there was a producer in Philadelphia who was putting together a collection of songs to deal with anti-bullying, because that was very much a topic that was
Still
in the news
is.
and still is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crowd of crows walked along the road when a donkey in a ditch caught their eye. The crows started calling, "Hey donkey, did you fall in?" He said yes, starting to cry. "Can you help me climb out? It's dark down here," and his nose poked over the edge. "Caw, caw," they laughed, "you're not like us," and threw stones at him over the ledge. Donkey in a ditch asked for help, but they refused. Donkey in a ditch, angry, afraid, and so confused.
In looking for material, he came upon a song that I had written along with a friend of mine, and he asked if it could go on the compilation, which it did. And all the proceeds from this CD were going to go to the Pacer Foundation, which is an anti-bullying organization.
Okay.
So we said, sure, go ahead. And then a few months later, we got a call. This is being submitted for a Grammy. Okay, sure. And this was nominated for a Grammy. Oh, okay,
great.
Wow.
Step two in the process.
Right. And then on Grammy night, it was about 4:00 in the afternoon. We won. We won.
Wow. So, so is it really like that, where you don't even really know?
Well, yeah, no, you don't. Yeah. You don't know until it's announced.
Wow. Did you know that they were going to be calling the winners at a certain time, or was it just
no? I mean, being children's album, we knew it wasn't going to be one of the primetime awards, but
right.
We didn't know when or anything, so we just waited. The producer and his folks were there. We didn't go to the ceremony. We waited here, and we were just my wife and I were just going to go out to dinner, but we got the call just before we went out. So it turned out to be a bigger celebration dinner.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. How many people were involved in that?
Quite a few. There were. I mean, there was the production team in Philadelphia, and then each of there was a song by Pete Seeger on the is
album. There?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there's our song and several others. It was quite a lot of folks.
Yeah. Has that experience changed the way you've approached anything, or is it just
no? Actually, reinforced. I mean, I've always felt that if you write a song that is meaningful and that is not time bound, in other words, not something that's going to go out of date in a year or two. Like if you write about something in the news today, it's then it's going to be gone in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, the song that was on that CD is one that we'd actually written 11 years before.
Really?
Yes, but it was general. I mean, it's something that
Donkey in a Ditch.
Donkey in a Ditch, yes. And then the following year, the same producer was doing another album and called to see if we had any other songs. My wife submitted a song and wound up being put on the CD, recorded by Melba Moore.
Oh, wow.
So, lots of opportunities come along, but I always feel that if you write songs that are meaningful and can withstand the test of time, you never know when they're going to find their moment.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of Harry Chapin songs, which were written in the 70s, are so relevant today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when we do them at concerts, it's like we're talking about, the situation of today.
Yeah. His songs really are very timeless in nature. He's a very special songwriter.
Right. Well, he and again, I learned from him in terms of people often ask, what do you write about? How do you get an idea for a song? And I say, as a songwriter, you always have little antennae that are out there kind of scanning life as it goes by. And whenever you see something or hear something or read it in the newspaper or see it on TV, if it makes your antenna tingle, that's something you want to write about.
Yeah. And
if you write it in a way that gets to the essence of it so that it spans time, that song can have a life.
Yeah.
In 1995, when I was Connecticut State Troubadour, I was asked to write a song for the Special Olympics because they were having the World Games here in New Haven.
Okay.
So I wrote a song called All of Us, God's Children, which was specific for that, but also general enough that it was just recorded recently again. And I try to do that with as many of my songs as possible, that even when it's written for something specific, if 20, 30 years go by, it can still have a life, still have meaning.
Okay, so Connecticut State Troubadour, what does that mean?
Connecticut is one of the few states that has a specific position, just like many states have a poet laureate.
Yeah, I know Connecticut
has a troubadour. Yeah. And it's a post that was created by the Connecticut legislature. Actually, it was a friend of mine, Tom Callanan, who was responsible for creating that position, and he was the first Connecticut State Troubadour. So every 2 or 3 years, a new troubadour is appointed, and so I was number 4 in 1995.
Okay. And
you can kind of use the position for, in any way that you wish. The general idea being it should in some way enhance an understanding of Connecticut's history, tourism, things that are good about Connecticut.
Right.
So I have
music?
Through music,
yeah,
yes.
Okay.
A troubadour is basically a songwriter.
It's great to be connected to Connecticut. Connecticut's a cut above the rest. Hartford to New Haven, eastern border to the west. Connecticut, USA. Connecticut, USA. Connecticut, USA is just the best.
So I have my album Profiles of Connecticut, which is a collection of songs about important people and places in Connecticut history.
Okay.
And we use that in a lot of schools when we do school programs.
Sure.
And
is that something you wrote while you were troubadour?
I wrote that just before becoming troubadour because I wanted to have something to submit that was current. And I had also, prior to that, my first CD that I put out in 1981 was a collection of songs about exhibits at Mystic Seaport.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when I moved here from New York, it was like, wow, trees and water. And I spent a lot of time at the seaport, and I found the exhibits there very inspiring. So I have a collection of songs that are inspired by the different exhibits.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a place we try to take the kids once a year at least. It's a really remarkable spot to be in
Absolutely.
Connecticut. Yeah. 1981.
Mm-hmm.
Your first album.
Yes.
The first Harry Chapin.
That was 91.
91. Yep. So it's every 10 years do you have a big event come up, or?
Well, every 10 years we have, like we're on the 40th anniversary of the Connecticut Songwriters Association and the 30th anniversary of LUNCH.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a big year for you coming up then.
Yep.
Yeah.
We did we did one of the big events that we had to celebrate one of the anniversaries was the Connecticut Songwriting and Performance Conference. We did a whole full day conference at Three Rivers College. We had speakers and concert and all that kind of stuff. So we look at how things are going and seeing what we can do. And
well, where can people find more information about the Connecticut Songwriters Association, about LUNCH, and about you? Songwriters Association. Well, any of those things, if you Google them, you're going to find them. We have a big online presence. The Songwriters Association is ctsongs.com. The LUNCH organization is LUNCHensemble.com. And my website is billpere, PERE.com. Okay. And do you have any big events coming up in the next few months?
One of our, in the spring, one of our annual programs is called Voices for Hope. It's a vocal competition for students between the ages of 11 and 19. They have an opportunity to win a $500 scholarship, and they participate in a Harry Chapin tribute concert that we do that evening.
Okay, 11 to 19.
Yes.
That's a big range.
We've been doing this for quite a while, and a lot of times it's the 11-year-olds who often win.
Yeah, they still have that cute kid thing going for them.
No, a lot of them have pretty big voices. There's a lot of talent out there.
Yeah. Oh, there really is. It's really amazing.
So we've got that, and again, it's one of our ways of bringing kids in to show them that, okay, you've got talent, you can sing. Look at the good you can do with it. Mm-hmm. That's one of our events, and then in the fall we gear up. We try to get a cast together, and we work on an annual holiday show, which is an original play that we write. It puts Santa Claus in all kinds of different situations.
Okay.
This year we got superheroes. Last year we've done the X-Men and the Hunger Games and Star Wars and Star Trek and all of that. So, and that's a whole original. It's a lot of parody and humor and such, and that's one of our big fundraisers for the local food pantries.
Oh, that's great. What time of the year is the Voices for Hope?
That's going to be in the end of April each year.
Okay, so it's in
that's
springtime.
Coming up. Yep,
yeah.
That's a spring event.
All right.
We also, in the Songwriters Association, we do an annual songwriting retreat. That's right here in North Stonington, Connecticut, at Camp Whiteman. It's a beautiful setting. It's a weekend away from all the worries of the world. You just retreat out in the woods, and you can just devote yourself to master classes of songwriting that we present.
Is this a collaborative effort, or is it just solitary time?
No. This is we have 12 to 15 folks that register for this, and we present master classes.
Yeah. And
we do collaboration workshops and creativity workshops and all the craft of songwriting, all that stuff that I was talking about before. It's all crammed into one weekend.
Wow. That sounds like something I might look into myself.
It's on the Songwriters website. Okay. It'll solve your problem of not being able to put your words and songs together.
I don't know if anything's ever going to solve that. Okay. Thank you so much for taking all this time to talk to me about this.
Absolutely.
There's one thing I always like to ask everybody before I release you out into the world again. As part of promoting the arts or creativity in general, I find that recommendations, word of mouth from people really helps. So I always try to get a recommendation from everybody for something that you've experienced relatively recently that might have been new for you, that you enjoyed and want other people to be able to experience for themselves as well. We
enjoy going to new musicals.
Yeah.
That like the Goodspeed often has new musicals that are being tried. Some of them are really, really good.
We saw Cyrano last year, and I was blown away at the Terrace Theater.
Yes,
Goodspeed.
Terrace. We saw Sign of the Times, which was based on the music of Petula Clark.
Okay.
And it was really, really good.
Yeah, they really do some incredible work there. Okay, great. How are you feeling right now?
Feeling fine. Feeling good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate what you do.
Thanks so much to Bill for coming on the pod. His work toward ending hunger really is amazing, and I hope it will inspire others to get involved too. Make sure to visit all of his different web platforms to learn more about each of his projects, including billpere.com, lunchensemble.com, ctsongs.com, ctsongwriting.com, and of course, songcrafterscoloringbook.com. So here's your reminder to leave a rating or review of the podcast on iTunes. And if iTunes isn't your thing, ratings and reviews can be left onto non-Apple related services, Radio Public and Podknife. So if you're listening on, say, an Android device or from your computer, feel free to drop your 2 cents on either of those platforms. And of course, if you'd like to support the pod, visit tabletostagepod.com to see the latest merch, or patreon.com/tabletostage to get behind-the-scenes content, advance access to all episodes, and discounts on all the merch, including tickets to live events. Speaking of which, tickets are available right now for Table to Stage Live on May 22nd at CT Comedy Theater in Hartford. Visit tabletostagepod.com/live to reserve your tickets early. All tickets are just $15, and that includes performances from comedian Rob Santos, singer-songwriter Abby Auden, and drag queen sensation Summer Orlando and Barbara Jones Street Sand. Doors open at 6, show starts at 7, and I hope to see a lot of you creators of habit at the show. That is it for this week. Until next time, keep creating.